we're gonna try and I love other things. Yeah.
Hello again, guys, and welcome back to Mumlemmas and More. As always, we'd like to thank our season sponsor, Mamma Mio. And for the month of October, Mamma Mio have partnered with Copperfield to raise awareness of breast cancer. And they're going to be turning their iconic tummy rub butter bright pink. And this was one of my favourite products to use during pregnancy. It's an amazing moisturiser that helps prevent stretch marks. And I'm really excited to try out this limited edition version.
It's so good, isn't it? And for each limited edition tub sold, Mamma Mio are donating 20% of the sale price to Copperfield. So if you want to support an amazing cause to help beat breast cancer, head over to Mamma Mio's site and shop the limited edition Pink Tummy Rub Butter.
And we'll leave a link in the show notes to direct you straight to their page.
Today's guest is clinical psychologist and family therapist, Dr. Martha.
So we really wanted to speak to Dr. Martha because I think as parents, especially of young children, it is super hard to know what they're thinking and how their brains work. And I'm always questioning myself and often thinking, am I doing this right? Am I getting it wrong? And I just really want to ask her some questions to do with things I've been dealing with, mainly with Sienna. And we've got some mumlemmas that she faces all the time in her work, and I think they're ones that all our listeners are going to want to know the answers to.
I think it's also really easy when you're in these moments to Google stuff to try and find the answers, and so it's really nice just having an expert, a clinical psychologist that deals with this and parents on a day-to-day basis that can help us answer.
Yeah, because she's also a mum. I think she's got a 3-year-old girl, and we're going to be chatting to her about playing with your child, what to do if you find it boring, how to deal with your child saying mean things to you, and how to deal with your partner or co-parent parenting differently to you.
Super interesting. And these are things that she has said that are the most popular questions from parents that they come to her and ask all the time. So, it's universal, these problems.
Yeah, I've definitely faced some of those. So I can't wait to hear her insight. Well, hello, Dr. Martha, and welcome to our podcast. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So with every guest on the show, we like to play a little game. It's a little icebreaker, and it's just a little game that we like to do. And today,
Don't be too nervous.
Don't be nervous. We don't mean to put you on the spot, but I think it's best if you just say the first thing that comes into your head. There's no wrong answer.
Okay.
And we're going to play Bring It Back or Leave It in the Past.
Okay.
So just think of one thing from the past that you would like to bring back and one thing that you would like to leave firmly in the past.
So the one thing that pops into my mind when I think about bringing something back is really random.
Love
But
that.
and probably no one will remember this. It'll be a sign of my age. But those old school like Fisher-Price cassette boxes that used to play cassettes, but also you could record on them?
Yes,
They were like brown, kind of camel coloured, and you could carry them around. I'm so old. But I would definitely bring those back. So they were really... You could just press the record button and record yourself on it. And then as an adult, I found these tapes and played them back. And then it's really sweet to
That's really cute.
Even just
I
hearing
love
that. I didn't know the words to Baba Black Sheep. I was just making noise. Do you know what I mean? And I'd love that to have my little one walk around and do that and then just keep the cassettes. But, where can you play cassettes anymore? Nowhere, probably. I just feel like those little moments, to me, they're really precious, but they're fleeting, aren't they? When they start to talk and they, mine is just singing nursery rhymes, but she's not really saying all the words
that's
properly.
what Sienna's doing.
It's so cute. And so every now and again, I will take my phone, I'll press record and try and subtly follow her around. But if she spots me, she stops because she's awkward.
Yeah, I stand outside Sienna's room so I can
cute.
listen to her chatting to herself and singing to herself.
It's so funny when you hear what they're saying privately, just
love
blabbering away.
Yeah,
But
I find it so interesting.
Yeah.
And okay, what about Leave It in the Past?
This one's harder. So the first thing that popped into my... Well, I had two, so I'm just going to pick one, is... I might not say this right, but being self-deprecating.
Yes, great one.
Yeah.
I think it was like something I learnt to do. You know, like if somebody says, that's a really nice top, like I'll just be like, oh, it's just from Zara. You know, like
Oh, I do it all. I actually do it all the time.
I do it every day. You know, like all the time. I think women just do. I guess.
And I actually think it's not great, and I really think we should leave that in the past. Like, we should just be more
just
like,
own it.
Yeah, own it.
Like thanks. Thanks. It's a great top. Like,
it is a great top. I'm wearing it, so I must like it. You know, like, or whatever it is.
It's being more sure. Like, you don't have to. Like, I apologize all the time.
Yes, that. Like, I think we need to stop doing that, especially as women and mums, like always apologizing for everything, just apologizing for taking up space, or apologizing for, you know, like, oh no, my shoes aren't that expensive. You know, you worked for it. You bought them. You're allowed to have them, you know, like, yeah, I really think that's something we should leave in the past.
Do you notice when you're doing it?
Yeah, I do. And it's like really hard to like not, because there's like a sense of discomfort sometimes that I've got something that I should be apologizing about rather than just, owning it.
So why do you think we all do it?
I think it's something about rebalancing power sometimes between people, you know, like, oh no, you know, you could have this too. There's like a sense of that, like a joining in. But I think it's also okay to just be like, yeah, this is really nice, you know. And I think also not wanting to be like arrogant or, you know, boosting yourself too much. I think that makes people uncomfortable. But actually, especially as a mum or as a woman, I think we do need to take up a bit more space, because men don't do that. Like, so true. Men don't tend to do that.
They don't apologise all the time.
They don't apologise all the time. Sorry, men, but it's true. Like, they don't.
It's so true.
But good for them.
They haven't learned to do that. It's not something that socially as men, they don't need to do it. Like, they're like, look how good my whatever it is, my trainers are, or whatever. Like, and they're a lot more, I would say, show-offy, but it feels acceptable. Whereas with women, we're like, oh no, we don't like that. But we don't have to show off. We can just own what we've got without.
Okay, I'm going to pick you up on it when you do it.
Okay, same. I mean, I do it all the time.
I think if you build the awareness that you're doing it, then you can stop yourself. Maybe is that how you'd say to start if you want to change your behavior? Yeah,
absolutely. So just notice like that urge to do it. I often tell people like just try and count to 5. You know, because even if we do it now, you count to 5, it's quite slow. But when it happens in the moment, you'll be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But that can be enough to just slow you down and think, oh, thank you, or to just kind of be like, oh, that's such a kind comment. You know, you can say something generous and kind back without it being like, I'm showing off.
And being awkward.
Yeah. But you don't have to put yourself down because of it either. So it's that balance, I think.
Yeah. I'm always like, oh, you know, got this odd thing, got it in the sale. It was so cheap, actually.
Yeah.
You know, like blabber on, you know. So you're right. It's good to just catch it.
Yeah.
Your first Mumlemma, and I guess this is what people kind of come to you with all the time, is playing with my child is boring. What do I do? So people say this to you a lot, do they?
Yeah, I think lots of parents find playing like effortful. So yes, boring, but also like, I'm just so tired. I can't be bothered. You know, it's the end of the day. Yeah. Like, what can I do to kind of help my child play independently or not need me so much? So I think that is a really common question for me. It comes up a lot.
With Sienna, sometimes like she is going through a stage at the moment. She will just come up to me with a book, like a lot, and be like, "Mummy, read this to me." And I never want to not read her a story, but I can't always read her a story if I need to do something else at the same time. And if it's while she's eating, I kind of don't want her to be distracted from the mealtime. And I think she's often doing it as like a distraction technique. So how do I deal with that? Because I feel really bad not saying no, but I just can't constantly read her a story. No,
and I think it's okay to say no to your child sometimes. It's okay to kind of set a boundary and say, like over dinner or something, like, yes, I want to read you a story. So you can set a boundary with yes rather than no, and children hear it better. So you can say, yes, I want to read you the story, but right now it's dinner time. So let's do it after the meal, or let's do it when I'm finished eating. Because also this one sometimes don't eat much quicker than us, don't they? But it's about kind of setting a boundary so that they know this is coming and I'm not rejecting you, but it's also okay to say no. And it's the same with other kinds of play. It's totally okay to say, I don't want to play that, or I don't want to do that right now. And I think some parents feel like that's a really uncomfortable thing to do because you don't want to come across as mean. But when you play willingly, your child feels it. Like, so true. They see straight through us. So if you're playing and you're like, oh, your kid knows. So that's not being with your child. And so then your child demands more time of you because they're like, well, that wasn't fun, so I'm going to need more of this. Whereas instead, if you just spend like 5-10 minutes when you're in that place where you're like, yeah, let's play, let's do something fun together, your child absorbs that energy and then they let go of you. So then you're like, okay, now I have to go and do dinner or whatever it is. They let go much more easily. Yeah.
And it's better for both sides.
Exactly, because you actually enjoy it. Yeah.
I struggle to think of games to play with my toddler. And unless, okay, we do hide and seek a bit. And her new favourite thing is making me pretend to be asleep in my bed. And then she shouts, wake up, in my face. And I pretend to be really shocked. So we were doing that at the weekend, and then sometimes I made her like lie down and pretend to be asleep next to me. So then maybe that's like a good example. But and it doesn't involve any toys. You're just literally like being silly.
Love it.
But sometimes I might sit and get her to play with her doll's house. But I don't know if I feel like I'm really involved in the game. She loves sticker books, but she's now able to just learn. She's learned how to peel the stickers off herself. So it's actually now something she wants to do on her own, and doesn't. Before it was like, "Mummy, help me! Mummy, help me!" And now she can kind of do it, which is great. But I'm like, how can I play with her, or what games what can I do? I mean, I know I can do stuff like cooking and get her involved, but yeah, I don't know if I'm being creative enough.
Yeah. So one of the things like a big message I would like all mums, dads, or parents to know is you don't have to entertain your kids.
Okay,
you don't have to. Like, you don't have to come up with, this is what we're going to do.
Okay.
You can when it comes to you. But you don't have to. Like, kids know how to play. They're like natural players. It's their world, okay? Like, they live, especially until the age of about 8, they kind of live in a fantasy world all the time. They're like in a dreamlike state in their brains. So they're always like half
that's so
dreaming.
interesting.
Which is also why they're not listening, and they're not, we've got to do this. Why? I don't want to do it. It's because in their world, they're somewhere else. Like, this is true. So just go with the flow. So I love that you just role play the sleeping game. My daughter also does the sleeping game. She often puts like a little bit of music, and she tells me off if I've woken up too soon. And don't know where she gets that, because I don't tell her off for waking up too soon. But it's all those like silly, but that is you playing with your child, right? Okay. It's just going with the flow. So like just witnessing their play and allowing them to invite you in, that's enough. And it's about taking that like observer position where you're standing like near them or with them, but they're playing, and you can comment on the things like, oh, Dolly's having a bath, or you're building a tower, and they might say yes, and then they might invite you in by saying, here you go, have a block,
or like have a cup, or have a teacup, or
have a teacup, whatever. So my child actually tells me what to say, and sometimes will tell me off. So her favorite game is shops. I'm sharing this story. She loves playing shops, and she's got a little wooden till, and she'll go beep like herself.
That's so good.
And then the other day I said, oh, this shop is very expensive. I've got my little copper. We actually use like real pennies. So I'm like, really cute. This is very expensive. And she looked at me, she looked really stroppy. And I was like, what's wrong? And she went, that's not okay. You have to say, this is a lovely shop. I'm like, okay.
Sorry, I forgot my script.
Okay, exactly. It's like scripted. I'm
Love her.
Do you want me to start again? She was like, yes, get out of the shop and come back. Oh, God.
That's amazing.
So off I went, and then I did it, and she was like, better, now come back. I'm like, okay.
I think I can, and
it's
so
like
see
she's
that
recording it or something. It's hilarious. But it's much better to let them lead.
Yeah.
So it's like she's playing and I'm joining, rather than I'm entertaining her. You don't have to do that.
Because I felt like maybe I wasn't doing enough, and that because I wasn't being like, right, I've come up with a game. Do you want to play a game?
No, that's great.
Okay.
You want to follow their lead. It really builds kids like confidence in their play, and it really helps them feel valued. Like you're joining in with them, so they feel like I'm in control of this, which they should be. Kids should be in control of play. That is the one place where they like, I let my daughter tell me what to do or whatever. And it helps them then when you have to ask them to do something, or you're teaching them a skill, to know, well, I've asked you to do something in my game, and now it's your game, if you like. Like our adult world is a bit like a game for them, because they don't really get it. So
I remember when I was a kid, I played a lot on my own. I kind of remember sometimes feeling even a bit bored, which is, I think, great. And, going and having to find my own stuff to do, and, making up imaginary things. And, I don't remember kind of asking my parents necessarily to play for me or with me. I would go and find it myself. And so I think about that quite a lot. I think it's quite a modern thing, I guess, you know, this current parenting situation where we feel like we have to play and overstimulate and always be doing something, taking them here, doing that.
I agree with you.
Is that
yeah.
right?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And it's really good for kids to get bored. So we don't need to entertain them, and they should get bored.
Yeah,
this is true.
I've been
Boredom is
stressing
great.
that I've been doing something wrong, so that's great.
Boredom is great. It really is like a window to creativity. So it's great that you remember that. I remember that. I remember being bored. Yeah, it's really stimulating for our brains.
I agree.
And even as adults, it's something we need to think about, that actually, especially with like, I mean, I'm terrible at this, but with our phones, like we're always switched on and we're always planning or doing something in our heads or with our fingers. It's actually quite nice to just do nothing.
To stop.
Just stop, because that's what opens up possibilities or ideas, or you know like,
Yeah.
it's a really good state.
So why do kids play? What is the whole thing around playing? And
Yeah.
you know,
So
from your
play
perspective?
is kind of like a child's work, is what I think of it as. That's their way of learning. It's their way of communicating. They tell us so much through their play. They express emotions that they won't be able to do in words, even if they're really articulate. They might do it through their play. Oh, so you might witness it when they're playing with their dollies. You might hear certain words or certain interactions. So again, I can give you an example. My little one was talking about kind of people pushing and hitting, like in her play. And I thought that's odd because she's not a pusher or a hitter. And then that allowed me outside of her play. So I wait until it's all like gone by. And so I asked her about it. And yeah, there were kids pushing, like in her childminders. And she said, they don't push me, but I am a bit scared of them. So then that was a really useful like entry point for me to have a conversation and figure things out. So do listen to your child's play, even when they're playing on their own, because it's like,
It's really interesting.
it lets you see their inner world. And also they process things like any kind of life event. Like if you do something like go on holiday or whatever, you might witness that your child is doing it. Or if they hear adult conversations, you might hear your child. Don't be worried about it, because I sometimes get parents say, I heard my child say this or do that on their play, and I'm like, it's not necessarily that something bad's happened. It might be they've overheard it or they've seen it on a TV program or whatever, and they're processing it, like making sense of it. It's also a communication. Like when your child says, come and play with me, they're saying, I want to spend time with you. Like that's their way of saying, I want to connect or be close to you, because they do that through play rather than, they're not going to sit next to you on the sofa and say, so today this happened. That's not what they do. Or through dinner. That's not what they do. They don't talk about their day, but they might talk to you about their day in their play. So if you join them, you might witness something you didn't know.
Like it.
I'm finding Sienna wants to tell me loads of things just before I put her to bed. I feel like part of it is her not wanting to go to bed. So she's suddenly like, okay, I start reading her story and she just starts coming out with loads. But I love it. And she's in her cot and I'm sat next to the cot, and she kind of looks at me through the bars of the cot, and we just like have like these chats.
Oh,
I think that's lovely. But evenings, like just before bed, that is a time when kids want to connect.
Yeah.
So it might not be delaying bedtime. It might just be because things are quieter, dim lighting, and their brain is more relaxed, hopefully, which is going to help them go so actually connecting before bedtime is really helpful, because it helps kids fall asleep. So as long as she's just talking about good things rather than things that frighten her.
She just at the moment she mainly just she is like a constant stream of consciousness.
So sweet.
So she'll just say, like,
I love that stage,
and everything that comes into her head, and it might just be things from the day.
It's lovely.
And then in the morning she often says the exact things we were talking about when she went to sleep.
So lovely.
It's like the first thing she'll say is like
a reminder just before she that's really good. Like the best thing that helps kids fall asleep is kind of connection and safety. So she's building that up, like feeling really close to you before she like drifts off. So that's really sweet.
I have one question actually about when she's about to go to sleep, and I've had the bedtime routine, like we've done the bath and got her into her pajamas, and maybe she's had some milk, and we've done probably 3 stories because one's never enough. And we've had our little chats, and it's been really nice. And then I go, okay, I'm gonna sleepy time. I was like, story's finished, like night. Mummy's gonna go to bed now. And she just loses it and starts screaming, and she often stand up in her cot, like be like start crying and shouting and screaming. And this has been happening most nights, and she does stop after like 5 minutes, but I find it really like difficult because it's just hard to like leave her and go downstairs when she's screaming for me. But no matter if I go back in and do another story, she just will not want me to leave.
Yeah.
So it's just, I find that quite hard, and I don't always know if I'm doing the right thing. But she is normally asleep within 5 to 10 minutes if I do leave her. Yeah. But it's like that, you know, I'm going downstairs, start making dinner, and I'm just like listening to her on the monitor, and it's really heartbreaking.
It is heartbreaking. I mean, if she falls asleep, you need to take that as a clue that she's actually feeling safe and okay, and that's more of a protest of you leaving. It's a protest.
Everything's fine up until the moment when I say I'm going. It's like an absolute protest of that. And sometimes she'll throw, you know, her pillow and duvet and everything out the bed, and I do go back in and resettle her if she does that. Maybe after about 20 minutes or so if she's still awake. And then sometimes she's more happy. She's like, okay, I realise actually I'm really tired and I just want my bun back, and I shouldn't have thrown it out the bed. But is that kind of just normal for her age? She's like nearly 2.5.
Yeah, that's very normal for a 2.5-year-old. And you can set it up if you want to make it a little bit smoother.
I would love to make it smoother. So because I know she's okay, but I find the crying distressing. So I'd obviously rather not have it. And I know she'll grow out of it, but I don't know how much longer it could go on.
So I can't promise that the crying will stop, okay? But you can make it a little bit smoother, so the crying might slowly stop, but not immediately. You can set it as a boundary before you put her to bed. So you make it really clear. And I heard you say, you know, 1 story is not enough. So if you think 3, that's what we do too. 3 stories. They're often quite short.
I do it as well.
Yeah.
3 stories.
She always tries to pick really long ones like Wind in the Willows. And I'm like,
I always get.
I'm just going to read the last 3 pages.
I think they always pick this huge nursery rhyme book, which is like this big.
You want to read it all?
Yeah, it's like thuds on the bed. I'm like, no, book 1.
So think about also like structure it a little bit. So this is what I do. So I'll tell you what I do, and it might or might not work for your kids.
But I'm willing to try it. Yeah.
So boundary bedtime a little bit, and like pick the books that you're happy for them to select. The rest of the books so we have certain books that are bedtime books only. So we don't read them during the day. They're just bedtime books, and they're much shorter. So clue 1.
I think I need
Wind in the
I need
Willows
to like rearrange the books in her room.
I brought you Wind in the Willows. That was my fault. I remember.
Thanks, babe. Amount of time I spent reading.
I mean, it's a gorgeous book, but maybe not a bedtime story, right?
Yeah.
So 3 like slightly shorter books, and then you let them choose. So I tell her, right, we're going to read 3 books. Okay, I'll start from the beginning. After bath, I say to her, we're going to moisturize. And it's a bit of a massage. Yeah. So I give her a moisturize, and that's when she tends to talk to me a bit like your little girl does. And then we'll do 3 books, and then I put some music. So she has music in the background. She falls asleep. And then I say to her, and then mummy will stay for a few rubs for a few minutes. So I rub her back after stories, and then mummy goes and you sleep, right? And it's very clear. So So then I read her the 3 books, and then we do like a cuddle. We have a little like ritual. So rituals are really helpful for kids. It gives them predictability. So I always give her a kiss. I always say the same things at night, which is you're in your cozy bed, you're safe with your teddies, and I name her teddies. And then I say, mummy's here, mummy's always with you. Even when we're not together, mummy's with you. So I say that, and I say it like that.
That's really sweet.
And then I put on the music. She switches off her light. It's got like a little bedside light thing. And then she rolls over. I give her a few strokes. It's usually about a minute or 2 minutes. It's not very long. And then I leave.
And
but I mean, at the beginning, she would still cry. But there's a predictability of this is what happens, right? And the more you keep it as a routine. So just keep it really boundaried rather than, okay, you're crying, so I'll do 1 more book.
Okay.
Because that makes children feel like, if I can keep protesting, you'll come back. Yeah. So you want to help them learn, we're going to do this and we're going to be really close and feel really connected. But when it's over, it's over. It's bedtime. And it she literally most of the time now, she's asleep before I've walked out.
Really?
Yeah, she's asleep.
And does it work if someone else is putting her to bed?
I think if somebody else is putting them to bed, you just need to let them do what they're going to do.
They've got to have their own way of doing it.
Because children respond differently to them.
I don't have to tell my husband or nanny to do the exact same thing.
No. Okay. My husband does the same as me because it works. But, he does much more like loud stories, whereas my stories are very calm and really boring.
I've realised when I read the stories in a more boring way, she loses interest more, like in terms of
that's good.
Yeah,
you want to do that bedtime. That's my other.
You don't need to do all the voices. Do like monotone, and then they get bored and they're like,
I do the total opposite. Do you? I do all the different characters and really kind of ham it up because I feel like it's dedicated time with your child. And you were talking about imagination, and I feel like, I mean, you know better, but a book is a way to really kind of ignite that in a kid and kind of get into their imagination and do all the funny voices and make them giggle. And so I kind of, I do the total opposite. So maybe
that's exactly what my husband does. So there's no right or wrong, but for me, it's like bedtime should be a bit more boring.
Yeah.
While still connecting. So maybe you can do that for the first book, and then the other two you can like mellow it. You basically want to send them off to sleep. You
get
want
quieter
to like,
and quieter.
Yeah. I do it in like a half whisper, so it's much calmer. And yeah, sometimes she does lose interest and rolls over, and I'm like, it doesn't mean I don't read them. I read, or like it's our boundary. So I agree. I'll read. But sometimes she falls asleep. It's great. I'm still in the room, but it's within our kind of boundary, so it's okay.
Okay, well, I'm going to try that. Thank you.
Give it
Hopefully
a try.
Less stressful bedtime. Okay, so our second mum lemma, this is definitely something I need your help with because I've got quite a feisty toddler and sometimes this does happen. So how do I deal with my child saying mean things to me?
I mean, I get asked this all the time.
Do you?
Yes. I mean, my child says mean things to me too. But I get asked this all the time. I think because as parents, it like really stings, like it hurts when your child says something. And we love our kids no matter what, even if we're angry or whatever, stressed, we still love them. So then to see our little person who has sometimes just started to speak go like, mean man me or something, it's like, oh no. So we often take it to heart, don't we? But the reality is that when they say mean words, what they're saying is, I need you, I'm in pain, like I'm hurting. So we need to see beyond their words, which I know can feel really hard as parents. But this is true even when they become, or particularly when they become teenagers. But it's about seeing underneath, because what they're trying to say is, I'm hurting. And your mean can actually mean, I don't like that you said no, or, you know, I don't like what you've chosen. I want to have my voice heard, or whatever it is. And they're allowed to, like and the thing is, they're not adults and they don't have an adult brain. So their brain is only under construction. So there's loads of things that they can't do in a skilled way because they don't know how to interact in a way that expresses an opinion. So the way I often talk about it is, see it as a disagreement. That isn't very eloquent, okay? They're just like firing off and going, I hate you. They don't hate you. And you need to see it as, okay, they're hurting. Something's upset them.
So yeah, Sienna hasn't said I hate you yet to me. But
she's little.
One thing that we find really difficult, and this happens a lot and most evenings during the week when my husband gets home from work, he used to always try and get home to do bedtime and bath times because otherwise he wouldn't really see the girls. And she like instantly, like when she hears his key in the door, would often be kind of in the half an hour after dinner where we sometimes watch cartoons, like if she's finished her dinner and not thrown it on the floor, like, you know, she can choose what to watch. And so, you know, currently it's Paw Patrol, but, you know, whatever the favorite is. And I normally, if I'm home and not working, I sit on the sofa with the girls and have that time with them. And so Hugo comes in and the instant reaction is, no, Daddy. And she'd start screaming. And he's like, and I'm like, Daddy's home. And I like go and say hi. And I'm like, look, Daddy's home. He wants to see you. And we're going to do bath time. And she's like, no. And no, Daddy. And like won't go near him. Doesn't want him to put her to bed. Doesn't want to, just wants mummy.
Does he feel hurt by
and
it?
It doesn't really happen on the weekend when she's been around him all day.
Yeah.
Is she like punishing him for being at work?
Yeah.
Is that it? Okay, so how do we deal with that one?
So no, Daddy, like in that sense, is, I mean, punishing is too hard a word. They're not doing it intentionally, no. Okay? They haven't got that kind of, I'm going to sit here and my dad walks in, I'm going to do, because I'm angry. Yeah. But she might be angry with him or upset or disappointed. It might also be a communication of her saying, I want more time just with my mummy, like you're going to take my mummy away and I don't want that. So especially if you've had like some more time with her, she might just be asking for that. So the best way to approach it is, you go and say hi to your husband and give him a cut. If she goes, no, Daddy, I would ignore it. If you just go and say hi. So do your standard whatever. And I think from your husband, what your daughter needs to hear is, hi, love, you know, I love you. It's okay. I get it. You want to spend a bit more time with mummy. That's fine. I'm going to come in later and give you a cuddle or whatever it is in terms of your bedtime routine. Or if it's his turn, if you do. Yeah,
because sometimes this is difficult because we've got two and I sometimes want to put the baby to bed. I don't, you know, I'm going through a phase where I was putting Sienna to bed every night because she was screaming and protesting, but I didn't. And I thought I've missed like 3 weeks of bedtime with the baby, and I'd really try to, you know, what was happening was I was putting Sienna to bed, and then the baby was still crying, so I was putting them both to bed, and then, you know, by the time I'd made dinner, and like the whole evening was just like getting really pushed back, and I really value having my evening off, so my kids are in bed,
of course,
from like literally from 7 p.m. That's my time. 6:30 p.m. It's more like 7 p.m. now. So yeah, that it can be difficult with having 2 kids as well, if she just wants me to do it every night, and they actually kind of both want me to do it every night.
Yeah, of course they do, but they don't have to have what they want all the time. Like, it's okay to disappoint our kids. Like, it's okay. It doesn't work. Like, it's unsustainable for you to do all the bedtimes all the time, especially if your partner's around. So again, try and make it into a routine. If you can, do 50-50. So that's what we do in our house.
So and I've only got one tonight's daddy's night.
Yeah. And so sometimes my daughter will say, so who is it tonight? And I'll say, who was it last night? And so I make her think. She's a little bit older, but she knows, okay, if it was one of them last night, then it's the other one tonight. That can be really helpful. If it doesn't work, alternate nights for whatever reason, practical reasons, just think which days of the week work for you and make it more like predictable for your kid. And then it's just about your husband like owning it, you know, like, you know, I still love you. That's okay that you don't want it to be me. I'm rubbish at bath time. You know, mum is so much better. So try and find his silly side. Nice. Can he get a bit silly and playful?
Yeah, he's really playful with stories. Like, he does like the opposite to me as well. Like, he does all the voices and stuff.
So maybe he can come in, you know, especially if it's his night for bath time, he can come in and get into a role. So my husband used to do things like be the Gruffalo or whatever. She was really into the Gruffalo, so he would act it out. They also had this thing where they would walk up the stairs doing different animals, like hopping like a bunny or whatever it is. But as soon as it became into like a game, then although she did protest, she was more willing to go. So you have to, and you just have to sit in your kind of authority as a parent and kind of say, you know, it's not me tonight. And I know you always want it to be me. And I love giving you bath time. So tomorrow it's my turn, but tonight it's daddy's turn. So acknowledge it, but then pass it on.
And that's just so that they get a balance of the parents and they don't get dependent on one over the other, and therefore I guess aren't mean to one or the other.
Yeah, and it's also about building their flexibility.
Okay, so the third mumlemma that you've brought to us that people ask you a lot is, how do I deal with my partner or co-parent parenting differently to me?
Yeah, I mean, this is a huge topic, but I think that is something I get a lot where, you know, in a 2-parent relationship where a parent is doing one thing and the other one's doing another. And I think there's a big misunderstanding. I think it's a misunderstanding about, as parents, you have to do everything the same. You know, like a bit like the bedtime story that we were talking about before, if I do it this way, then you have to do the same. And if you don't, then it's wrong. And that's not true. Like, our children don't need the same. I think it's a bit of a myth, you know, like this myth of consistency. I would call it predictability. Kids like things to be predictable. It does shrink anxiety. But being the same, one is like impossible, because you're going to be 2 completely different people with different backgrounds, different personalities, and that's good. So for me, it's about how you combine your differences to still have like a similar goal in terms of your values. Like, these are the things we want to do or support our child with. But we don't have to show up in the same way. It's really good for kids. It builds flexibility. It also builds exactly what they need, which is an individual relationship with each of you. So, you know, if your husband's more like playful with stories like mine is, my daughter's always giggling with my husband. I'm not saying she doesn't giggle with me, but it's definitely different. Yeah, and it's beautiful. When I hear them together, I'm like, oh, that's really joyous. And then my husband will say that she does things with me that are a lot calmer, and like, you know, she'll tell me all the stories, you know, all the things about, you know, school or whatever. And he's like, oh, she never tells me anything. But I'm like, yeah, but that's my relationship with her, where I'm the person who like hears it out. And that's beautiful. Like, she's got these 2 different relationships, but, you know, there's richness in that rather than we must do it the same. And I think that's one of the things that causes a lot of conflict in relationships. This idea of we're not parenting in the same way. So you don't have to. It can still be like really good for your child.
When can it be a problem?
Yeah, I think it can be a problem if you feel as a parent like what the other one is doing is harmful in some way. Or if you feel like what then happens is you 2 end up in a big conflict about it. So rather than being on the same page, even though you're doing things differently, what ends up happening is you end up fighting against each other. You know, I'm right, no, I'm right. Like, that's not helpful.
Yeah.
Because then it grows this like atmosphere of conflict between you, and your children do absorb that too. So it's about being a team. So I often talk about this in terms of you two need to be a team in front of your child. And once your child is not around to witness it, it's about communication, like open communication. So using curiosity rather than blame, thinking about we rather than I, you know, or you.
Like we as in like you and your partner.
Yes. So thinking about it as like, you know, what are we doing with our child? What do we want to show them? Like if it's about a tantrum or something, you know, what are we hoping our child will learn from what we do? You know, being curious, like what happened there? Because I heard you shout at them and, you know, they spilt a cup of water or something, you know. I don't understand, like, are you okay? Is something going on? You know, kind of being like...
asking those questions.
Yeah, wanting to be more of like a support rather than how dare you shout at them, which is...
It's so easy
blaming.
So easy. I think in a relationship, and I've definitely found with my husband, just like questioning what he's doing. But I guess the way I've maybe said it is like, you know, we can get frustrated with each other.
Yes.
And sometimes I feel like the way he's trying to explain something to Sienna, if she's done something naughty, like throw food on the floor or push her sister over or draw on the wall, something like that, is that he would maybe tell her off in a way that I think is too mature for her. Like he's using language that she doesn't understand, and that I'm kind of like, can you not see that that's not the way to do it? And I'm like, she doesn't understand what you're saying. Like, stop it. Like, just and then that's probably just totally the wrong thing to do, because I'm like undermining him in front of her. And
that's exactly it. So what in that situation, what do you do? Do you then wait for
have
them
to talk
go
about
to
it
bed?
later? Yeah.
And
So
then have
it's
communicate.
Yes.
Slowly and
Yes.
calmly.
But it's really hard to do. And I fall into this trap too. So this was like also my mumlemma, because I mean, also I'm a child psychologist, so it's really hard. Like it's really hard not to jump in. And I think
it must
like
be really hard to not. You're like, I know what to do, and you're not doing it.
Exactly. And then it's like, oh, you know, and then we end up in this place where like, oh, you're the expert. And I'm like, well, yeah, well, I kind of am. But which is not where you want to end up. It's not where you want to end up with your husband, because you want to be like, or I don't want to end up in that place, but it does happen. And I think it's about like, just take a breath, breathe. You know, you hear your husband say those words, they're like, oh gosh, she's not going to understand that. Just let it go, like let that moment pass. And later when things are calm, because also your husband's dysregulated in that moment, right? Yeah. Like they're shouting or they're saying whatever it is, they're not thinking straight. If they were, they probably wouldn't be doing it. So just wait till things are calm, and then it's about approaching them with curiosity and having a conversation. And it is about, when I talk about like, think more of we, like us together, you can also ask, I say this to my husband, like, what can I do to help you in those moments? Like, I can see that you're gone, like she's done something and it's really sent you off. So what can I do in that moment to kind of help you? Because if you were calm, you wouldn't do that. So what can I do? And then like me and my husband have like a sign. So think of having a signal. It can be verbal or non-verbal. So we do a thing where we touch each other. Like just touch. Well, touch is quite powerful, and I'm quite tactile. So if it's me who's losing it, because I lose it too, he'll touch me on my back or he'll rub my leg, and I'll do the same with him. So it's about, without speaking, I'm kind of like, I'm right here. And then sometimes it means one of us will take a break and the other one will take over.
Okay, that's
just
so
for a
nice.
moment.
That's so good.
Or like some parents, like I had a banana. I had a parent who had the word banana as like their code word because of a funny incident that happened to them. So it'll happen and they'd go banana, and then the other one would be like, oh yeah, I need a moment. But it's like non-confrontational.
And then your child's not picking up on you doing it.
Yeah.
Does it just make you kind of come back into the moment?
Yeah.
And
yes. Yeah. It just brings you back to awareness. Exactly. Which is what you need in that moment. Just that moment of, what am I doing right now? You know, get back in your body rather than wherever. When we get triggered, we often go back into the past. Like it sends us off somewhere else, not here right now with our child. So sometimes just having some touch or a signal or a word can really slow you down and go, what am I doing? And then, you know, it might be, okay, I need a moment. Or for my husband and me, like I think because we've been doing this for so long, but we're able to kind of just stop and look at our child and go, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have like straight away, like repair, which is what your child needs in that moment. Somebody to say, I'm sorry, I shouted at you, that wasn't right, because our emotions are ours and we need to be responsible for them. So it is about just think about something you can do with your partner that kind of brings you back to here and now rather than wherever it's taken you to.
Okay, that's such a good one.
What do people usually have conflict about? What are the big topics for you?
So yeah, things like shouting at their kids. Okay. One of them is more shouty than the other, or more punitive than the other. They'll like punish the child immediately or do, and the other one's like, no, that's not okay. So it's more like that. So yes, and often it is gendered, which I find quite interesting. So obviously not in same-sex relationships, but the parents where there's a mum and a dad, often there is like a gender difference and also there can be a gender difference with the children, which is really interesting, probably a topic for another day. But often dads respond differently to boys than they do to girls.
Really?
And mums respond differently to boys than they do to girls.
In what way?
So dads tend to be a lot more punitive with little boys. Like, this is a general statement, okay? Dads out there in the world don't go, I'm not like that. But it is like, it's a fact. There's lots of research evidence about it. And there is like a strong...
What does that mean? Punitive? What is that?
More like, punitive means like using control or fear or shame to kind of discipline. Right? So much more like, that's not okay. Whereas with a little girl, they're a bit more like softer. Okay, and little boys tend to get it quicker. So if they do something that's really not okay, it's like straight away, whereas girls can get away with it for a bit longer. So there's loads of research on that. And there's like narratives in our society about little boys and expectation of young men. Still now, like, it's 2022, but it's still there. This idea of little boys don't cry, or, if they fall over and they don't cry, they're like, good boy. And I'm like, gosh, when you get hurt, tears are a good thing. Like, they're actually healing your pain. It's okay. Like, we are all born with tear ducts for a reason. They're not there just at random. They're there to do something in our bodies. But those narratives kind of stick, and often without meaning to, it's the way that dads have been brought up as well by their dads. So there's like this narrative. And interestingly, with mums, it's similar. So it's still little boys who'll be like more things that are not okay, but then with little girls it's more about aggression not being okay. So any form of anger or shouting loudly is like not okay. And again, there's loads of research on this, but when we think of little girls in that kind of gender specific way, femininity, it's not feminine to be shouty or to be too loud, or I know we talked about this earlier, but like take up too much space, right? But instead of, what I tend to tell people is, think about the how rather than the shut down. How do we teach our little girls to speak up and be assertive? You don't have to be aggressive. You don't have to be super loud, but you can be assertive. And that's a really good trait as a woman. Yeah. Like, come on, woman. Like, I think it's really important. And same with little boys. Like, it's a really good trait to be vulnerable and sensitive, because, I'm a woman, but I'm attracted to men who are sensitive. I'm not attracted to men who have no feelings. Like, who wants to spend time with somebody who's like, I don't feel? That's not attractive. And so we do need to kind of help our little boys and our little girls learn the how. Like, you're allowed to be vulnerable. You're allowed to speak up, but it's about over time honing it as a skill rather than just allowing it to kind of, get in the way, if you like.
Great. Love it.
Thank you. One last question. It's actually not on here. I just feel like sneaking it in because it's one of mine for you. And we touched on it a bit with talking about, like kind of how to deal with your child if they are doing something that you want them to stop doing. Like, for one of the things we're dealing with at the moment is Sienna sometimes like forcefully trying to push her baby sister over. Sometimes she I feel like she's starting to get to the age where she's finding her like her annoying little sister, because she's like crawling, she's trying to walk, she's standing up on everything, she always wants whatever Sienna's got. So she kind of crawls over to Sienna, stands up, and she'll just try and grab whatever Sienna's got, and she gets really frustrated, and she just pushes her away. And sometimes she'll just go up to her and she'll be just standing, like using one hand to stabilize herself, and Sienna will just like push her. And in the kitchen we've got like a stone floor. And you know, it's really hard to see. So that's kind of something she does, which, I mean, she does sometimes, she throws her food or something like that, but you know, hurting her sister is more something immediately where I'm like, okay, like stop. And sometimes I have shouted at her. I really don't feel that I want to shout at my child. I don't really know how to handle the situation, because I've tried kind of, right, you need to like taking her out the room, kind of trying to get her to, you know, say sorry. I just don't really feel like I know what I'm doing. I don't know.
It's basically, it's like discipline. If you're not we're both similar, right?
But
not very disciplinary.
What is the right way to get? I've tried explaining to her that she's upset. You know, the emotion, like you've made mummy sad, you've upset your sister. And sometimes recently when it did work for a while, getting her, you know, she'd calm down and then she'd say sorry and she'd go and give her a kiss and then go back to playing, it'd be fine. But recently I'm just like, you say sorry, and she's like, no, not saying sorry. Like, and she'd really like protests against saying sorry. And then I'm like, well, do I just let you go back to playing? Like, I don't know, because you've done something wrong, but what's the consequence? And I just feel like I'm getting it wrong. It's one of those moments where I'm like, am I failing at this? And
well, there's no manual to parenting, is there? It's like you really just have
like having two and seeing one like try to hurt the other one it's hard to watch as a parent, and I don't really know how to handle it.
You're not failing.
Okay.
Breathe. You're not failing. You're definitely not failing. It is really hard to watch. The first thing to know is that she's not trying to hurt her little sister.
Okay.
But she is trying to communicate something. I don't know what it is because I haven't seen it. But think about these things. Is it communicating, go away, you're annoying? Okay, because I heard you say that. It could be that. Is it mummy, come and get me? Because she knows if I push, mummy shows up. You know, so is she saying I want attention from my mummy?
I think that's part. Yeah.
Okay. Or is it you're annoying?
I think it sometimes is. I think it depends on the situation.
It could
like
be
sometimes she'll
other.
be eating. She sits in a big girl chair now. She doesn't want to sit in the high chair, and Aurelia will like walk over sometimes and she just wants to like join in with whatever she's doing. So she'll just be kind of pawing at her, like touching her. She's just like, go away.
Yeah.
But then there's other times maybe where I think it's more for attention.
So what you need to teach her, because she's old enough now, is how to say it without the doing it. Okay. So we want to teach the how rather than the do. So when you come up to her, it's about, I know I heard you say you don't want to shout at her. It's okay, everyone. That's going to happen sometimes, especially when you feel really triggered. Doesn't make you a bad parent. But if you can, go to her. And when you see the pushing, you know, name her want. So it might be, you wanted me. You know, Sienna, you want mummy. It's okay to come to mummy and say, I want attention. Get her to repeat it. Get her to repeat it. I want attention. Good. Next time you want attention, I'm in the other room and you're here with your little sister. Come to me. Okay? Or just say, I want attention. I'll come to you. Pushing your little sister is not okay. So that's what it sounds like.
Wow.
Like in that kind of tone of voice. So you want to focus on the do, what you want her to do, rather than the stop doing that.
Okay. Because so don't focus on the negative
try
behavior.
Not to. Yeah. Because that reinforces it. I know it sounds really paradoxical.
What I've been doing is like focusing too much.
We all do that. Like I do that too. Because it's like, because it's so like triggering, right? It's like an impulse to protect. So that makes complete sense. So you're not bad and you're not failing. It's just a really hard thing to do. But when we help our children like not notice the thing they've done wrong, but notice the thing you want more of, they do more of that thing. So you do want to teach her like, and practice it. So make it playful. So maybe you take the little one with you or whatever it is. If she's pushed her and she's crying, you want to give her a cuddle, right? You're not just going to leave her there. Yeah. But you might say, let's practice. Okay, I'm going to walk out the door. Like, because they need lots of practice and lots of repetition. So sometimes people will say to me, well, it doesn't work. And I'm like, well, how many times have you done it? Twice. It's not going to work twice. Okay. Like you need lots and lots and lots. So you might say, I'm going to walk out the room. Let's try it. You know, I need attention. You poke your head out. You know, like,
so you make it fun.
Do you need me? I can always give you attention. Yeah, make it fun. And also say to your child things like, you can always get attention from me when you ask for it. I know that's going to, some people will say, what? Like, of course. And what we want to teach our kids is you're allowed to ask for attention. It's like if you make it into an adult topic, it's like saying when you want to talk to your partner or a friend, that's not allowed. You know, if I pick up my phone and I call my best friend because I want to talk to her, she turned around and went, you want attention? that's bad, hang up. I'd be like, well, what? It's about having a relationship. It's okay to say, I need to talk, or I need to be with you. It's also okay at times to have somebody say to you, actually, I'm in the middle of a work thing. Can I call you in 10 minutes? That's okay. So we can do that with our kids too, which is, I'm here. What do you need from me? Okay. A bit like the book story. I'm going to read to you, not right now, but you can come and join me in the kitchen, or, allow your child to be around you, but you can still set a boundary and say, not right now, but thank you for calling me. Like, because what she's done is stopped that impulse of, I'm going to push my little sister because it gets me what I want. And instead she gets to ask and use her words, which is a social skill, communication.
It's so interesting,
isn't it?
Does that make sense?
I just love how you explain it. I think it's so great. Also, that when you do your, like on your Instagram and you do the, your videos, and it does make, you're suddenly like, oh, I got it. Like I sometimes it just completely flips it around in my brain, like the way I've been thinking about dealing with the situation, but then actually how it is in my child's world and in my child's brain, it's like the total opposite.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's just it's suddenly like when you start looking at it like from their point of view, you're like, whoa.
I guess the worst thing.
Of course they're doing that because it must, and it really explains a lot of kind of what can be quite confusing behaviour. Yeah. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on and
that was amazing.
It was so good. I'm literally like, can I just keep you here and just like ask you questions like all the time?
What's your WhatsApp?
I'm like, no, because I you messaged a while ago because I was like dealing with some toddler tantrums and I was like, oh, I'm like really losing it. I need some help. And then we don't understand a child's brain. We tried to understand what our kids are trying to tell us, but it's so nice to just hear you say it, and lots of the things you've said have actually felt like a big relief as well.
Oh, good.
You can find Dr. Martha online. She's at dr.martha.psychologist on Instagram. What did you love about what she said today?
I really love her approach to parenting. I really do. I really want to take on board a lot of what she said. She definitely made me feel better about the way I react sometimes to Sienna, and like I'm not actually getting it wrong, which was really reassuring. And I loved her ideas around making bedtime a bit less stressful as well. So I'm definitely going to try like that bedtime routine she does with her daughter. I was like, oh, I just want to be a child again.
That's what I thought. I was like, imagine being her child. So please remember, guys, we are not experts. We're not doctors. So if you have any questions about any of the topics we've spoken about today, please contact a professional.
And thanks again to our season sponsor, Mumlemmas, and don't forget to check out their limited edition tummy rub butter in support of Copperfield, where 20% from each sale will be donated, and you can find the link in our show notes. Before we go, here's what's coming up in the next episode.
If they've done a little poo in their pants, empty it into the potty and show them where it goes. Go and wave bye-bye to the poo and do all of that with them. It's great, isn't it? Something you've always wanted to do as parents. But my little girl, she's 24, she used to do a poo and then hand it to me like in the car. Seriously, you know how children always want the wrapper taken off them or something opened or one you're driving. Yeah. And one day I turned around and she's like, Mummy, tar, and I just went like that, and it was a poo that she picked out of her nappy and gave it to me.
Guys, we want to hear from you too. Have you got a mumlemma that you'd like to share? One that we can try and help you with?
If you do, then email us at mm@basementchats.com or DM us on Instagram at basementchats.
You can also check out our YouTube channel for behind the scenes clips. Just search Mumlemmas. The YouTube channel is updated every Sunday. Thanks to audio producer Laura Gallup of Feast Collective and the rest of our amazing team who make this podcast happen. Not forgetting Basement Chats for creating this space where we can have this chat.
Please note, everything that we chat about on this podcast is just our honest and most authentic thoughts, but we are not experts. So please do consult with your GP or with a professional if you want to find out more about any of the topics that we have discussed.